Hello everyone, and welcome back to another World of Tanks console video. My name is Zach, and today's video will be focusing on the other Tier 8 Premium Heavy Tank that was introduced into the game. We of course are talking about the Russian Captain, the Object 252U Defender. And boy oh boy has this tank been a pain to deal with on the battlefield, as pretty much everyone is constantly using Russian tanks, and the Defender is no exception to that. So today's little video will be focusing all about this, and before we get started in the tank comparison, I definitely want to give you guys the runaround on this tank and its unique features all above it. Definitely something to point out there. I believe that is an accordion. Yes it is. That is some cool additions of detail right there from Wargaming. Definitely trying to stick up their engine, their graphics engine here, as well as the emblem here on the front of the right, and the 252 on the well, that would be the right side depending on what you're facing. The left side is a viewer. So I'm going to give you all the statistics about this tank and how it stacks up against its Tier 8 Heavy Tank Captain, the T-26E5 Patriot, and help you sway in which captain you would like to support for this year's TankBowl. TankBowl 2018 is of course underway, so without further ado, let's get started. So going into the comparison, if you guys are watching this video, you're going to notice right away that I decided to do something a little bit sneaky and help you guys decide on which nation's team captain you would decide to pick in this comparison. The Object 252U Defender is being stacked up against the Patriot T-26E5, just to give it a little bit more of a oomph in deciding which team captain tank that you want to drive. Now, I would rather not compare it in this sense as far as being compared to any of the other Tier 8 premium heavy tanks, because I did the previous video with the KV4K, drawing that thing out to a massive 50 minutes as far as the comparison when comparing all the Tier 8 premium Russian heavy tanks. So rather than do that with this video, I decided on focusing on the two major tank captains and keeping this video a little bit shorter for you guys to enjoy, as well as trying to get you into a little bit of persuasion in coming over to the American side of things. But no worries, I will keep this a little bit fair in comparing the Defender and the Patriot, as I will be respectively calling them that throughout this comparison. So the Defender has a 122 caliber versus the Patriot's 90mm. So you can notice right away why the firepower stat for that Defender is 43, with the Patriots being 36. However, again, as we previously discussed in the Patriots tank comparison and tank review, the 7.2 base reload on that 90mm is definitely what you want, as it beats out that 15.50 seconds of waiting time for a base commander on the Defender with that 122 caliber gun. Again, 3.87 rounds a minute definitely can't hold up to the 8.33 of the Patriot. Keep that in mind when you're selecting your nation. The penetration on the Patriot standard APCR rounds is 230mm of penetration. Its premium APCR rounds is 259, and its HE rounds is 45mm of penetration. Now, where the standard penetration for the Defender on its standard AP rounds is 225, it definitely beats out on the premium rounds, because 265mm of premium APCR rounds definitely have a more of a bump as far as being able to get more shots into tanks, and 68mm of penetration on its HE rounds is definitely a help of that 122. Now, the Defender obviously might have a slower reload, but the 122 is known for its big punch, as a 440 alpha on its standard AP and APCR rounds, and 530 on its HE rounds if you penetrate, is definitely one of the things that people are going to love about the Defender. That's not taking anything back, that's just pointing out the clear as day stat that I'm presenting you. The Defender definitely packs a great punch with that 122. The Patriot has that lower 240 average damage on its 90mm and 320 on its HE. This is one of the things I feel like pulls the Patriot a little bit back. They could have adjusted that a little bit, but I can see where they were going. The Patriot having better DPM plays out a little bit better, but the Defender is no slouch when it comes to packing a punch in the higher tiers. Shell costs, unfortunately, for that 122, definitely a little bit higher. 1,025 silver for its standard AP rounds, 4,800 for its premium APCR rounds, and 608 silver for its HE rounds. Doesn't really stack up well against the Patriot. That 90mm only has a standard APCR shell cost of 255. On its premium APCR, it's 4,400 silver, and on its HE rounds, 255 silver. Definitely put the Patriot as more of a silver earner. The shell velocity on the Object 252's AP rounds is definitely great with 1,000 meters a second, and on its premium rounds is definitely the winner, 1,250, and 700 meters a second on its HE rounds. The Patriot unfortunately falls behind with 1,021 meters on its standard APCR rounds and its premium APCR rounds. Although the premium or the standard APCR rounds definitely beat out the 1,000 meters a second on the Defender's AP rounds, the premium APCR rounds definitely put the Defender in a better spot, as the shell velocity does go up compared to the Patriots. 823 meters a second on its HE rounds is definitely a little bit better than the Defender's whopping 700 meters a second. However, keep that in mind that your HE rounds velocity, you'd be better off firing the 122 compared to the 90mm with HE rounds. Again, one of the things I hate about the Russian IS series, as the Defender is based off, is the low ammunition count, and this is one of my main things I hated pointing out. The 30 round limit capacity on those Russian tanks with the 122s definitely feels a little bit underwhelming, as choice for ammunition definitely becomes one of the bigger things in the higher tiers. When you have the ability to meet tier 9s and 10s, as much as you have the ability to meet tier 7s and 6s, you definitely want to have a little bit of choice in your ammunition. 30 rounds I feel is just a little bit too underhanded as far as being able to adjust the amount of rounds. I don't fire a lot of premium rounds, but I like having that safety net of having them there. And the Patriot definitely holds up in that respect. Has 70 rounds of ammo. Definitely give me a wider selection as far as being able to decide what rounds to carry. However, again, I don't really fire that many premium rounds. I prefer firing these standard rounds. So just to make a little bit more profit. But I like, again, having that safety net. The DPM on the 90mm will obviously beat out the 120, but just by 200, with 1,999.2 on the Patriot T2065's 90mm. But the Defender putting up a decent fight with the 122, 1,702.8. That's only 200 difference. That's not too much. So the Defender definitely has is a competitor in this fight. The aim time, unfortunately, for the 122s are always a little bit lackluster. It's 3.4 seconds. Definitely can't keep up with the 90mm 2.3. 0.38 on dispersion at 100 meters will definitely again beat out the 122's 0.47. The gun elevation of both tanks is actually 20 degrees. However, again, one of the things I don't like about Russian tanks, 6 degrees of gun depression is very good for a Russian tank. Anything more than 5 is good, but doesn't compare to the Patriots' 10 degrees. However, keep in mind that as long as you have that tank in a hold down position, as far as the Patriot goes, the Defender just has better opportunities with that 122. The hull traverse speed on the Patriot is at 30 degrees a second, beating out the 28 on the Defender, so ever so slightly, and again ever so slightly with the turret traverse, with 25 degrees a second on the Patriot and 24 on the Defender. So it's only losing slightly as far as being as far as the capabilities between turning and being able to stop those tanks from circling you. The mobility stat for the Patriot takes it at 19 beating out the mobility stat of 15 on the Defender. Things aren't looking so good so far for the Defender. Come on, pick it back up at least. The engine power was actually one of the most funniest things about this, as 704 on the Patriot was just 4 more horsepower than the Defender has with 700 flat. And I laughed about this when I was inputting this in the stat sheet just because by just 4, man, that was just really everything counts. The power to weight ratio on the Patriot wins with 15.7 horsepower to ton. Comparing that to the Defender's 13.59, that's no slouch. Keep in mind this tank can get up. The fire percentage chance is actually great for the Defender, as it only has a 15% chance of fire, comparing that to the 20% on the Patriot. So that's something to keep in mind when you want to put that premium consumable on your premium tank. The top forward speed of the Patriot, 40.2, definitely beats out the 35 on the Defender. Just keep in mind 35 is still fairly good for a heavy tank. And again, ever so slightly, the Patriot with a 15 kph top reverse speed, just slightly beating out that 14 kph in reverse for the Defender. Both tanks have the same terrain resistance on hard at 1.2. However, the Patriot actually takes it on medium terrain with 1.4, just beating it out by 0.1 on medium. For the Defender, it gets 1.5. However, the Defender actually takes it on soft terrain, as it gets 2.3, beating out the 2.7 on the Patriot. In survivability stat, you have a 59, beating out the 54 on the Patriot. The Defender has definitely shown that its capabilities with its gun. That survivability stat definitely shows that, because as long as you're able to keep that tank ever so angled, you'll be able to put that 122 to work. That's where that survivability stat ends up coming around in the end. As far as the hit points for both tier 8 tanks, they both end up with 1500 hit points. Keep that in mind as you're going across. Whether you decide for American or Russian, both ending up with the same tanks, hit points on each tank will definitely feel a little bit balanced as far as most of the others. Overall armor thickness, the Soviet biased in this one leans ahead with 15 to 250 millimeters of armor thickness on the Defender, beating out the 13 to 203 millimeters on the Patriot. The hull of the Object 252U Defender is only 130 millimeters thick, comparing that to the 152 that the Patriot gets. However, something to keep in mind with anything on Russian is that armor thickness only counts for so much, is the actual sloping of the tank. And we'll go over that in the armor model viewer, but this is just the overall armor thickness of the tank. On the side of the hull, you have 100 millimeters beating out the 76 on the side of the Patriot, 90 millimeters on the rear of the hull beating out the 51 on the Patriot, 250 millimeters on the front turret of the Object 252U Defender, beating out the 191 millimeters on the Patriot, 150 on the sides of the turret, beating out the 114 on the Patriot. However, on the rear of the Defender, it becomes a little bit lower, as it only has 100 millimeters of armor thickness, losing out to the 127 that the Patriot ends up having. Concealment stat. Now, both tanks are hero skin versions of the tank, and ever so slightly the Patriot lost, as the Defender takes it with 24 concealment stat to the Patriot's 20, as when it's stationary has 0.14, and when moving it has 0.08, beating out the 0.12 on the Patriot and 0.07. The spotting stat, unfortunately for most Soviet tanks, always ends up falling just shortly behind. 84 for the Patriot and 62 for the Defender. And that is because the 390 base view range of the Patriot and the 745 base radio range definitely gives you the advantage over the Defender's 350 base view range and 730 base radio range. However, one thing you guys always have to take in consideration is, in the end, which tank costs less and you're able to pick up a lot faster. Well, your Patriot will definitely win in this case, as it only costs you 12,440 gold. Comparing that to the Defender's 13,940 gold, just what is that? Another 1,200, 300 gold more. The Defender definitely packs that extra gun, and it's just a little bit higher in cost. However, your premium bonus is what makes you decide on your tanks in the end. Not only the cost, your Defender gets a 50% silver bonus and a 10% experience bonus. Unfortunately for itself, the Patriot gets a 57% premium silver bonus and a 15% experience bonus. So those are the two tank captains, the American and the Russian tanks, stacked against each other in this tank comparison. I hope you guys enjoyed it. But before we head off to the gameplay, we're going to head over to the tank arm in-game armor model viewer for you guys to get a little bit more of a feel for the way that the Defender's armor and overall armor thickness is actually work. Let's go there now. So in the in-game armor model viewer, we have the Object 252U Defender here, and right away you'll probably be noticing this red bar all along the front of the turret. Again, 250 millimeters of effective armor there. Just means that the front front of this tank is just pretty much impenetrable, unless you're, of course, tier 10 firing premium, and at that point even some of those will give you trouble. Because some of them don't necessarily get up to the amount of penetration. Now right away you might be wondering, well, what about the roof of the object? Well, similar to that of the IS series tanks, the roof is a bit of a weakness, but only if you get it at an angle at about this much. So if you're like the type 4, type 5 heavy type of height, maybe the E100 or the 4005, you'd probably be able to go right through the roof. However, the commander's hatch on this is definitely a weak point, as they are quite large. You can tell when you're just like this. They are, however, 150 millimeters of effective armor on top of each commander's hatch, so be careful on that. Some might ricochet or some might not, depending on what angle you actually get it to hit at. Along the front of the tank is about 130 millimeters of armor thickness, and on the lower plate I believe is a 100 and I think it was 110. Let me double check that before I keep going. I'm sorry, 140. 140 X is actually on the lower plate. However, because it is not all that well angled like the top, the effective armor is still at most about 200 to I'd say 210 at most. So most tier 8s, you just have to, swap over to those premium rounds. You'll definitely go through the bottom of this tank. I've even been penetrated depending on depending on how you end up approaching a tank. If you're just a little bit above that lower plate, ends up becoming just a flat surface. Even tier 6 and some tier 6 and tier 7s can just go right through the bottom. However, if you manage to face hug someone and avoid that a little bit, the effective armor on the front of the hull, while being 130 millimeters on the top, is only 130 millimeters thick, is actually able to go up to about 300 to 400 millimeters of effective armor. So as long as you keep this tank facing forward and brawl to hide the lower plate of the tank, as in most cases similarly to that of the IS-7, you'll definitely be able to put this tank to work, and that gun can remain firing. However, please try not to side scrape, as you can see right here that the Defender has this lower bar doesn't quite necessarily cover up enough of the tracks that if someone just takes a good shot, this is easily penetratable. And you never side scrape in most of the IS series types of tanks, as when you angle or try to side scrape, this side of the hull just becomes penetratable, as the effective armor thickness ends up going down to about 190 millimeters or 180, depending on how much you end up over angling it. So again, that just becomes a huge weak point, as well as just someone aiming into the track, or if you're a player seeing someone do this, aim into the track, you'll be able to detrack them, as well as do damage to the tank, as that is a clear weak point on most tanks. But on the IS series, that is definitely more noticeable with this variant. So again, try not to be too aggressive in this. Just keep moving forward as best as possible. Hide the lower plate, and you know that gun depression might not help you too much. But if you're on a level playing field and able to get just a slight cover to this plate, you'll pretty much be a great tier 8 competitor on the battlefield. So without further ado, let's head into the gameplay. So today's gameplay is going to be starting off with a tier 9 game, and I'm pausing it in a second just to give you a quick look, as the spoiler for that video definitely showed up right here with the Defender Ace Tanker that I got for it. And you're going to enjoy this Ace Tanker as much as I did, because the twist at the end definitely shows, and it kind of made me just laugh. So that's why the pause at the end will be a little bit different for the results. However, you can see I'm stacked up here with my clan mates from Kamui. That is our clan name that was decided between a few of us. And the top two guys are Pro Martinez and Revival Gems. Pro Martinez is his Conqueror. Revival Gems is M103. I'm in the Defender, and Zero's in his KV4. But rather than talk about my clan mates, let's get on to the video. I say that and then it takes a while. You never know. So a tier 9 match primarily, a few tier 8s towards the bottom end of the map, and we're doing this on Fisherman's Bay War version. I kind of like the fact that they always have this switched up between the different variants of the maps, not only having the same variant of it pop up. However, I would love to be just playing on some different maps in general rather than just different variants of that map, but the variants definitely do help. So the Defender, you can see, has decent mobility as far as being able to compare to the other tanks. However, this was one of the things that definitely threw me off. The Defender's rear, the side of the tank, was penetrated by a T-54 lightweight. Again, the top gun on that gets a PCR. Definitely has good shell velocity as well as penetration, and it was kind of unusual for it to be able to penetrate from that. But that gap between the top of the hull of the tank and the actual tracks definitely doesn't really help. But the way he penetrated is actually right on this corner. Let me pause this when it gets to the tank, and I'll show you exactly where it penetrated. It actually penetrated right along this corner right here, which puzzled the hell out of me when I was first watching it. I was like, how it just confused me. It really did. However, continuing on, we're gonna just skip over that, as that T-54 lightweight definitely was the more annoying tank to deal with. However, our team, as far as the map goes, ended up spreading over there anyway and being able to deal with him later on. Now, Revival definitely pushed me into the corner there. Don't know if it was on purpose. His mic had been off. He didn't realize it until a little bit after this. And then he turned it on right at this point and was like, okay, my bad. That was definitely me. You had a shot. So you can see that we decided to take over the city, which is normally the area for heavy tanks anyway. And if you're in a heavy tank, I feel like you should move on this position more than you should the other side. That is normally a tank destroyer, a medium type of thing to do. Keep that in mind, guys. Just trying to help you with tactics. Maybe I come out with a map tactic guide later on. But I know a few people on YouTube actually currently do that, so maybe not really my thing. But going to the Defender, you can see that it has great mobility, able to get up into the position that I wanted to, and decide to start putting this gun to work. So I quickly peep over, didn't think he had a shot, but 373 is definitely on the low end as far as penetration goes. Martinez got the hammer on the side. I was trying to sneak a shot in, but this dead Panther tank definitely not helping me. And that was the more interesting thing here. Just to quickly touch on this. Artillery, how dare you? There's Russian bias in this game, and I definitely feel like it should be mentioned. So for the meantime in this replay, please watch my health, as that is the last hit that will actually penetrate me, which will make you laugh as the rest of this video continues. So, myself, Martinez, are up in this position, and you can see that we're just a little bit struggling as far as what we're able to do in this corner. Our teammates in the back are definitely trying to push up, but just to no avail. Martinez using that, going hull down, using that Panther, definitely trying to put his turret to work. But I'm trying to be a little bit more cautious. As you can see, the amount of hit points I have is only 103 out of 1500 left. So that 1500 does go a little bit in the lower tiers. However, in the higher tiers, not really helpful. That T10 just got that shot into the 1390, and he was definitely aiming at me. I feel like that 1390 took that shot for me. Whether he did or not, I want to say he did. And just keep an eye on that T10. We're going to see him a little bit later on as he comes and tries to mess around with us a little bit later on with his teammates. So you can see here I'm trying to poke up. I'm not being too aggressive, as again, that few hit points I'm just trying to save here. However, this KV5, the Gornish, definitely tried to put more than he could handle, as put a good shot into him with 453, and he bounced off of my tank. So you can see 4 rounds already with this 122, and the tanks are making a rush tactic. Unfortunately, 0 went out there, and I can't penetrate, so go for the T10. Now the 450TB, I don't know how many people have actually noticed. This tank was actually slightly nerfed. We'll get back to that in a second, as the Gornish decides to push up on me, as well as the T54 lightweight. Oh man, that shot just dunked. I didn't protect Revival in this case. I apologize. He ended up getting shot in the rear twice, but managed to take out the KV5 over there. T54 lightweight was definitely putting up a good fight, as again, he was more annoying to deal with than he was actually a good. So on the note of the 4502B, I don't know how many people have actually noticed, but the 4502B, after the introduction of the VK7201P was actually introduced, the Panzerkampfwagen, definitely why did I say 7201P? That's the Panzerkampfwagen 7 is the tier 10 German heavy that was introduced, and when that was introduced, I feel like the 4502B was actually slightly nerfed, as when I checked the armor model viewer, it had actually gained a weak point on the front lower plate of that tank, which is very interesting to me. I don't know why they did that. That was the only thing that the 4502B had for it. Previously, I could ricochet tier 10s, tier 9s. The Jagdpanzer 100 bounced the shell off the front of that tank. Taking again another shot for Revival there. We both put in good shots against him, and I'm trying to cover for him. Hammer didn't stand a chance. But yeah, that I felt like that was something that was in the notes, and when I went back to check, it actually wasn't in the updated notes. So either that was done without most people noticing, or if you noticed it, let me know down in the comments below. Maybe I just wasn't able to keep up with it. So you can see that after taking quite a few shots, I've actually still managed to stay in this game with 103 hit points. However, unfortunately, Revival made a bad move on this end and gave the T10 an open shot to the rear, and a wild Panzer IV Piers and auto aims and ricochets right off my tank. T10 auto ricochets off my tank, which made me laugh so hard because that was the second shot in a row that bounced, but I don't make that mistake. Make sure I carefully aim that shot and put it right into him. He over angled that, gave me a great shot for the AP rounds to penetrate. So this Panzer 1C definitely doesn't have it. He's about to get hit and down. Again, that is just to show you the trolling effective armor of this tank, as if you know how to use it, you'll definitely be able to put your enemies to tears, as they're not going to be able to penetrate you. This Panzer IV thought he was safe. Nope. Denied. Panzer IV, man. That was 4 tanks, basically. 3 tanks, one right after the other, that actually encircled me, and 4 tanks that I was able to take out in the span of a minute and a half. That's pretty good for the defender's case. Uh, the reload again is one of the bigger downsides to it, but again, when you're able to put those shots in effectively, uh, using that gun, making sure that every shot you shoot actually counts, then it kind of helps you out. However, I didn't really help that in my case, as I was trying to get the T-54 lightweight from the get-go and just firing blinds. That again, it comes into that whole 30 round limit that I don't like from the IS series of tanks. The Defender being included in that definitely doesn't make me feel comfortable, but 440 alpha, or average damage on the shells themselves, definitely help. And you can see I was trying to check out the gun depression on this tank because we were chasing down artillery. I checked over to the right side, but spoiler alert, he was on A2 the entire time, or I believe it was A2 or A1, just waiting for someone to come over. I believe the AMX 5100 finishes him off. But yeah, that was the Defender. Um, Oddly enough, still on the same amount of hit points I was left with after artillery splashed me very well. That, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, means that is an ace tanker. 4,065 damage caused and 2,000 damage blocked. With an ace tanker earned, the Hand of Gods, nope, sorry. That is lucky for ricocheting a shell that can cause more damage. It's supposed to be ricocheting a shell that with less than 10% HP on your tank, which is also, I believe, what Spartan is. I believe these two combined are the same. And Reaper for getting 4 kills, I want to say. One right successively. 5,676 experience earned with 142,809 silver. So you can definitely see that this profitability for this tank is still pretty good. And as far as experience earned, it definitely can do a lot more when you're in the higher tiers, as that 122 being better suited for punching above the weight class compared to the Patriots. 1,802 base experience, 4 kills, 4,065 damage caused, 11 shots that I fired directly at an enemy, 11 shots penetrated. Again, 4 of those rounds kind of ended up being because of the T-54 lightweight getting that first shot off on me, kind of annoying me to, I guess, baiting me into wanting to fire at him. With 2,000 damage blocks, I blocked 6 of the 9 shots that actually hit me, and a total travel distance of 1.9 kilometers. The base silver earned for this tank was 99,547, and with the premium bonus that only goes up higher. Ammunition cost was fairly low, 7,175. Again, those stack up when you hit the shells. With the operation giving me an additional 7,500, I ended up not having to worry about the ammunition cost. Repairs, unfortunately, 6,837. I don't know what the fully damaged or destroyed tank cost as far as the repair cost, but I don't believe it's a little bit more. I think it's like 8,000. However, you saw before that the total silver earned from this tank was 142,809. Very good for a tier 8 premium, and I've been love jumping back into the tier 8 premiums and just grinding away some silver, and the Defender and the Patriot will definitely give me that more than welcomed look in earnings. The base experience again is 1,802 with premium bonus of 270. The premium experience multiplier and the daily bonus, leaving me with 5,676. So that was the Defender's Ace Tanker replay. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, comment your favorite part. Again, the trollish part of the Defender is the actual effective armor you get off of that tank. The Defender and the Patriot being both team captains, again, I'm solely voting for the Americans just because of last year, and my main tanks consist of mostly Americans of the American nation. It's the only nation that I have the engineer medal in, so again, I'm a little bit biased in that sense. But that doesn't mean that I don't enjoy playing the defender. The defender, again, with that 122, when you're effectively using your armor, is a great tank to play, and that is not taking that tank any lightly or just auto aiming to the front, as when you auto aim in a Russian tank, you know, that bias situation of RNG happens, and you'll definitely either aiming to the top of the hull or the gun in most cases. Is the defender a great tank to purchase? Yes, it is. That is not downplaying the Patriot. That is just saying that the defender is still worth your money if you choose so to purchase it. If anything I showed you guys cannot help you in deciding on that, again, there's a bunch of people that are still doing tank reviews for this. Feel free to express any of them or any of the dislikes you had about this tank review down below. I'd greatly appreciate any support as far as that goes. Helping me fine-tune these tank reviews is definitely a big help. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, if you did, please leave a like. If you didn't, a dislike, doesn't matter. Your opinions are welcomed, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Have a good night.
Hey, there's no